It is with pleasure that I come into your home today.
Welcome to You Never Knew.
My life has certainly been anything but good.
We're joined today by veteran detective and legendary author John Cameron, author of It Was Always Me, Edward Edwards, the most prolific serial killer of all time.
There are a few things I'd like to talk to you about. Build a fire in a person and not under him.
Okay, so holy cow! The last episode of It Was Him, The Many Murders of Ed Edwards. I mean, it's over. I mean, it's completely over and unbelievable finish. Now, I gotta ask this. I mean, you and Wayne look like you're gonna kill each other.
Yeah, we were about to kill each other prior to the discovery that we found in Portland, and I think that kind of smoothed it over in this episode.
I mean, it really starts off with, some fireworks between you guys. I mean, especially, I guess in the last episode, he didn't really buy into the Laci Peterson and Black Dahlia cases yet at that point, and you got kind of heated with him.
Yeah, it was a tense couple months being with him like that, and I was really frustrated with the way he wouldn't follow the evidence or do his own homework sometimes. I asked him, have you ever read Ed's book? And he didn't. And that is actually the blueprint to all the murders. So I was a little frustrated with Wayne by this point in time.
Well, yeah, I mean, that is the key. I mean, Ed's book himself, as we said before, is essentially the map to the murders, or at least a number of them. But, I mean, he seems more than happy to follow you to Oregon, where his family's from.
Yeah, and that's exactly where one of his biggest murders was just before the Zodiac, was in Portland, Oregon. A young couple on a lover's lane.
Another lover's lane.
Yeah, on Thanksgiving. And
on a holiday.
Brutal murder. Beat and stabbed the male. Ed ended up with a gunshot wound in his arm after that murder, and it turns out the victim in that murder had fired a couple shots through the front window and must have struck Ed in the arm. And I don't know how the cops didn't catch him on this one.
So they actually had him and were questioning him with a wound?
Yeah, they had him actually in jail. And he had a bullet wound, and he had been out pulling fire alarms, just creating recognition. And he managed to con his way out of prison by having somebody call the jail saying they've released the parole hold on him, and they let him out. And that's when he became America's Most Wanted man for a year.
That's when he got on the top 10 most wanted.
Yeah, he was one of the first ones to be on that, and he was very proud of that. But he traveled for a year after that in 1960-61, killing.
You said at the time Wayne hadn't actually read the book, The Metamorphosis of a Criminal, but after you detail so many things in it, he seems to really, really come around.
Yeah, and in this case is really the case that I think brought him around. Number one, it's in his hometown. But we met with Phil Stanford, an author, and he showed us a report where the victim was hanging out with a parolee from Montana.
I mean, Phil Stanford, he's like the expert on the whole Peyton-Allan case, right?
Yeah, that's the case. Larry Peyton and Beverly Allen. I met with Phil actually in 2010, and we worked together for a while there.
Well, it's amazing how many aha moments that you guys discussed at his house.
Yeah, it was nice to sit down with him. That was, 7 years after I'd sat down with him before. But he had all the case files, the original case files on that. And when he pulled out the report that showed that the victim had been hanging out with a parolee from Montana who had been in Deer Lodge, well, there was the answer right there.
He showed you like never seen before police records that put Edwards actually in Portland.
Yeah, he was definitely important in Portland, and he details all this murder in his book, that he went to the scene and stood there and watched as the police processed it. And I had found the original report, which shows that Edwards was stopped by the police the morning after the murder, and he was standing at the scene watching. I'm always watching. That's one thing that's important to Ed.
So clarify the Lover's Lane murder in Portland and the Lover's Lane murder in Montana. I mean, I apologize. I get confused. There's so many murders, but I mean, there's a discrepancy that Ed ties together for the readers of Metamorphosis.
Yeah, he actually crossed the murder in Great Falls, Montana in 1956 with the murder in Portland in 1960. He kind of makes mention of both of those murders, but changes up. The one in Great Falls was a shooting. The one in Portland was a stabbing, a beating, and a strangling. And so once again, you got rope, knife, gun. All you're missing is fire. And he would go on after that murder and kill somebody by fire.
And Eddie Jorgensen?
That poor man. What people don't understand is Eddie went to prison for that murder. And he was actually being tried during the Zodiac killings. And that's one reason Ed went down to San Francisco and killed couples on lovers' lanes.
God, I mean, what was it like meeting a man who was wrongfully, convicted?
Beautiful man, military man. He teared up.
We're talking to you guys.
He was, I felt so horrible for him because to this day he's never been cleared by the governor or anybody. They just let him out of prison after convicting him with really no legal say to do it. They just let him out and hoped it would go away.
So it wasn't like it didn't expunge the record, didn't anything, didn't make him never convicted of a crime. He's still a convicted murderer?
He's a convicted murderer, still on his record, and they never expunged it. It's just sick.
Well, it's a travesty. I mean, I would take out versus in, but wow.
In fact, when I went and interviewed some people on that case, the guy that prosecuted the Jorgensens was the most rude man.
So now you're on the phone. I mean, you're trying to get the state to do something about it.
They wouldn't do nothing. It's just it's the story of how they do everything in this system. Once you're convicted by a jury, you're convicted, and they shut down. And if you're not part of the system willing to fight.
Yeah, but if there's new evidence that can come back, I mean, several people in other cases have been able to find evidence that wasn't available at the time. DNA has certainly let a lot of people out of prison.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I think we have in this show and in this book is we have new evidence as to how the killer's MO was and how this is the man. But trying to get a prosecutor on board who's going to take the paperwork and do it. One thing I do hope the show exposes is we'll probably get lawyers willing to volunteer to represent some of these men in there.
Yeah, well, I mean, there should be, essentially a whole movement for some of them. It's very, very clear that people, have been wrongfully convicted. Several of them have either died in prison or been executed.
Right. There should be an Ed Edwards defense, and I really think that will come about. There'll be lawyers to step forward in the future who are going to be willing to represent many of these men and get them out.
And if you're listening out there and you have the power to do so, I mean, please clear Eddie Jorgensen. But your journey comes to an end, with Wayne anyway, and it, at least for now, and it kind of comes full circle. I mean, your relationship, started out pretty strong. Obviously, you guys had your issues, and it seemed to come like full circle towards the end. I mean, were you happy, with the way things kind of resolved with you guys?
Yeah, I'm glad we did it together. Wayne and I, remain friends, and he's a good guy. He's got a good heart. He's not his grandfather. He's not a serial killer. He was worried about that at the beginning, that he might have got the gene.
I even brought it up. I said, were you concerned about being with him?
Yeah, it never crossed my mind that he was that way. He's just not that type of guy. So I'm glad he got to meet his family that he didn't know about. I'm glad that he got to see some of this. I understand his skepticism on some of it, but that's actually a good thing.
Well, I'm glad he's not just taking everything just because somebody told him, and people shouldn't. I mean, the book is fairly clear. There's an awful lot of theories in there, a tremendous amount of proof, and it's changed the minds of so many experts and brought light to so many things. But I mean, honestly, you by yourself at the end on the top of that hill, I mean, what an emotional scene. Tell me about that.
That was the craziest sunset that I've ever seen. I'd never been to Astoria, Oregon, and we were on the top of that beautiful hill with the sun going down, and we had just finished shooting. Me and Wayne had just finished fighting it out. But in the end, Wayne admits that there's no doubt about his grandfather was the Zodiac. And that's really all I wanted to get out of him in the end.
Yeah, that final montage, near the end, seeing all your theories come to life as Wayne talks to his dad. I mean, hard not to get emotional about both his and your journey.
Yeah, it was really emotional for them, I know that, and that day on that hill at the very end was just like, thank God it's over. I have to step away from this for a while now.
So, I mean, again, thank you very, very much for taking your time, more so for writing the book, for taking all of the years of your life to bring this stuff to the public and to give closure to so many families, so many families, and then many, many more to come. And again, I'm here with John Cameron, veteran detective, author of It Was Always Me, Ed Edwards, the most prolific serial killer ever. Also was the author of It's Me, Ed Edward, Wayne Edwards, the serial killer you never heard of, sold out. Tremendous book. I feel like it's just the tip of the iceberg, especially reading his books. And, I can't wait to see what happens next. It's just mind-boggling. Thank you very, very much.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.